So I'm standing outside of my knife shop about to go in and do some fun stuff, and I just wanted to make this quick video because about once a week somebody calls or writes or something and wants me to regrind their T.O.P.S tracker, and I get sick of typing the same thing over and over again, so this is a video that I can link to tell people why it is I don't want to do it. Well, it all starts a few years ago. I made a tracker regrind for a friend of mine, and then one of his friends wanted that same regrind and asked me if I'd do it. And I said, okay, I'll just charge you 50 bucks or whatever. And I reground it, and he got it back, and he wasn't happy with some aspect of it. So he took a file and went to grind a certain spot, and the file was able to cut into the metal. And from that he deduced that I'd ruined the heat treat. He sent me an email, and I replied, well, I doubt I ruined the heat treat, and I'll explain why in just a minute. But since you're unhappy, let me just send you $350 so that you can buy the best tracker that T.O.P.S makes and have a little bit of extra money for your trouble, right? He would not give me his address, didn't want the money, just wanted to bitch. And he went on an internet forum and bitched. So I finally was able to locate the shipping receipt that I had shipped his knife back the first time. And I found the address. I sent him a check for $350, which he cashed. Okay. Do you think that he took any time at all to post that, you know, hey, this guy like hunted me down and like made sure I was happy? Do you think, like, even for a second? Don't hold your breath, okay? Don't hold your breath waiting for that to happen, because you're gonna turn blue and die. Never said a word about it, right? So it hasn't hurt me because I don't make a living making knives. I do it because it's fun, and I cannot possibly make enough knives to meet demand. So, you know, whatever. But let me explain why it is impossible for me, the way I do things, to ruin the heat treat on your knife. Number one, I don't have any tools that hold the blade for me, okay? I hold it with my fingers on the blade right up next to the edge. I grind slowly, and as soon as it starts to get warm, I stop. I set the knife aside and work on something else until it cools down. So I'd bet you that I can leave this knife out in the sun here and have it get warm enough that it's warmer than I would go to before I took it off the grinding wheel. Are you telling me that that's going to ruin the heat treat on this knife? No? Okay, then I can't ruin the heat treat on your knife. Now, that being said, T.O.P.S is a very good company. They make very good knives. I have met the founder and I liked him, and I think they have some really innovative stuff, and they give a lot of young knife designers and knife makers their start. I have several friends that have designed knives for T.O.P.S, so I like T.O.P.S, right? But there is a reality to the modern manufacturing process when it comes to steel, okay? And the way that heat treats are done. Number one, in any batch of steel, you're going to have some stinkers, okay? There's going to be little pieces of inclusion in blades, and if you go on to blade forums or any other forums, you're going to see examples of knives that split at a certain point. And a lot of times you'll see steel that's a different color right at that spot where it's split. And a lot of times I think that it's either from, you know, there was an inclusion in the steel, who knows what it was, but there's inconsistencies in the steel that you work with, even as a custom maker, okay? So that's the first thing, is not every knife is going to be perfect. The good news is that almost nobody actually uses their knife, so most people are never going to know the difference. The tracker guys tend to use the hell out of their knives, so, you know, they're going to discover an inconsistency at some point down the line. The other thing is that heat treats for these blades aren't done one at a time and every single blade checked in the RC scale. So you're going to have inconsistencies in the heat treat that's coming out of any one batch of knives. I can't speak to how T.O.P.S does it, but I do understand the manufacturing of a lot of knife companies, a lot of big volume knife companies, and what they do is they do batches of a lot of knives in baskets, and they're all heat treated at once, and depending on when it came out and how long it was in, there's going to be inconsistencies, okay? So if you got a knife that had somewhat of an inconsistent heat treat, or maybe there was an inclusion in the steel somewhere, and you get it back from me, guess whose fault that is? Not the person's fault who actually made the knife and sold it to you. It's my fault, because after I touch it, anything that you don't like about that knife is attributable to me. And I don't want your knife, okay? I have more knives than I want, so I don't want to buy that knife back from you. The difference between me making a knife from start to finish myself is I can control every part of that process. And if there's any spot along the way where I detect that there's something wrong with the knife, you're never going to know about it, because nobody's ever going to buy that knife. It ends up a paperweight, or it ends up a piece of steel that I use to heat up my oil tank. You know, you'll never know. But nothing is ever going to leave my shop without me being sure that that heat treat is good and that steel is good. So if there's a problem with the knife, what I do is I sell the knife, person buys it, they don't like it. I don't care why they don't like it. They smell it. That smells weird. I don't like the smell of this knife. I say, okay, here's a refund of your money plus shipping, send the knife back to me. In 2 seconds, I can resell that knife. You know, obviously I'm going to go over it and look at it and make sure that there's not really any problems with the knife. But if there's no problem with the knife, I have no problem reselling it. I can't do that if I regrind your T.O.P.S tracker, right? Nobody else wants your knife. Nobody else wants your used T.O.P.S tracker, and I don't want it. So that is why I do not offer regrinds of T.O.P.S knives. You can find plenty of people to do it, and you can trash them on the internet, but you're not going to get me to do your regrind. So, sorry.